female that would regularly greet her. They were tall, blonde, blue-eyed, Nordic-looking aliens, I guess. And they would, she didn't really go into detail what they did to her or what they talked to her about, but she said she went on a UFO ride, basically, many times.
And she's running for Congress.
And she's running for Congress. And
I love that.
I read the article. I got the article, Miami Herald. It's really balanced. It's obvious that they are looking at this more seriously. The only thing is the comments that were made. A couple comments were pretty snide, and I basically said, well, what's a couple more? It's pretty. An avalanche usually falls when people discuss this stuff, and we have a person in our group here that brings that up from time to time, saying that he gets, he brings up the subject, he's shut down right away or laughed at, and so I'm glad that all this is happening now. It's really great. I mean, you can feel the energy when this subject comes up now. People aren't so closed-minded.
By the way, I wanted to add, and in your next, Stephanie, I wanted to add to this candidate that's running for Congress in Florida. She is just not some fly-by-night person, by the way. Her daughter was, or is, do you know her title for her daughter? I think it's some net. Oh, I know. It was the, something like the Asian Caucus publicity representative for the National Republican Committee. It was something, it wasn't Asian, I'm sorry. It was another...
I think Hispanic.
Hispanic. It was the Hispanic representative to the National Republican Committee for an outreach program that they have at the national level. That's her daughter.
Yeah, and her son.
Her son-in-law works for Mike Pence. As an assistant, a deputy staffer. I forget what his title is. But so this woman knows what's going on in Washington, D.C., and she seems to be interested in UFOs, and they are, see, here's the deal. If someone is totally connected usually to this kind of thing, they would not necessarily run for office and say it. Exactly right. So this woman is connected to the inside, but she's actually talking about unidentified aerial phenomena in her campaign. Now, what does that tell you about disclosure that's going on? I think it's telling me something. I don't know about anybody else.
It's become an open book.
Thank you for saying that.
It's an open book.
Jump in there.
And it's about time, and actually reminds me of this book that Lee brought. It's Above Top Secret.
Oh, nice.
And this is an what looks like to be an incredible book, and I'm going to try to take it from Lee tonight.
No, you can't have it. I'm not done with it.
Let me show it to the folks so you can see this. This is Above Top Secret. It's a classic book by
Timothy Good.
Timothy Good, the famous English-British author and very credible researcher. Matter of fact, it is saying here on the back, the hottest topic among UFO enthusiasts is what they describe as the federal government's experience with aliens. Can you believe that? Timothy Good and a group of UFO investigators in the United States say they have documentary evidence that the government hid its knowledge. The charges are contained in Mr. Good's book, Above Top Secret. Right there. This thing is about 2 inches thick. Go ahead, Lee.
But I can briefly. I've gotten through about this much of it. But I noticed...
How much is that for the folks listening on the radio? Two-thirds of a 2-inch book.
This will wear you out on how many occurrences happen all over these countries in the world since 19... I mean, there's too many... It's just nuts. Then you get back into the book farther as I look into the index. Then you got more stuff on the government. Okay, I go by... If I get this thing going here, see what I'm doing?
He's putting his glasses on, folks. Don't worry.
On the process. Okay, you got USA, whatever, but later on they get into the NASA, the Defense Intelligence, the Central Intelligence Agency. That's what I'm quite interested in, what the government is doing. But this will just wear you out in how many instances. It's just nuts. I had this book for a while, and I set it down and got on some other books. Now, this other individual came in,
You want to hold
Warren,
it closer?
yes, another book called Above Top Secret. I thought, oh, for UFO things. Now, that's Jim Mars. And Jim Mars has passed on and transitioned. But he is a researcher that can come up with stuff that just knocks you over. Kennedy assassinations and you name it, this guy pulls up stuff. This is a
And which book, see, the people on the radio don't even know what this book is. You have to tell them the title.
This is Jim Mars, Above Top Secret, and this other
Above-
book is the UFO cover-up of
Okay.
UFO Above Top Secret. Now,
So in other words, let's explain this. There are two books called Above Top Secret.
yes,
Yeah. One of them's by Timothy Good. One of them's by
Jim Mars,
Jim Mars.
which is transitioned to a next plane. But Jim just gets on various subjects, 9/11, and just pulls up information. It just absolutely surprises you. Why he can pull up this stuff and nobody, very impressive. Very good book. And it's to be circulated around to UFO I Team because Warren wanted this to be passed around amongst the group.
Oh, wonderful.
So you can have this one. It says.
Hey, thank you, Warren. Warren is one of our members of the UFO I Team, and his lovely wife Frida. And thank you for that book report there. Now, before we get out of here, let's go to Stephanie next because you're just chomping at the bit, I can tell.
Yes, because it's occurred to us lately that many of you listening and watching our broadcast probably have your own stories to tell, and we would love to hear them.
Yes, we will.
So we have created an email address for you to send us an email if you like. We can keep it completely anonymous.
Anomalous.
Anomalous.
No, anonymous.
Anonymous. And we would love to hear your stories, and in some cases, it might provoke us to come and do more investigation. So the email address is ufoiteamreport@gmail.com.
Now, is that reports with an S?
No.
Oh,
Report.
okay,
Like
let's
a
clarify
verb,
that.
Like a verb.
So UFO I Team Report at gmail.com. You can communicate your stories to us on that Gmail account, and that will be monitored by
Me, Stephanie.
the lovely Stephanie, who will be watching for your stories and then bringing them to our meetings,
Yes.
possibly.
Yes.
If you are willing to share them with us, please let us know. If you would like to remain anomalous yourself, just let us know that as well.
Yes. We'd love to hear from you.
By the way, do you have a book in front of you, Stephanie, that you would like
I
to
do,
share?
As a matter of fact. One of them is a small book that I picked up because I thought I could just put it in my purse and have it with me to read. It turned out to be fascinating. And when I first saw the title, which is The Terror Above Us by Malcolm Kent,
I'll show it.
yes. At first I thought, oh, it's just a silly, trying to be scary story. But what it is actually is an account very similar to the
This way.
Betty and Barney Hill story of two brothers who were in their 20s at the time who apparently were abducted and kept on board a vessel for approximately 36 hours. And this happened in 1958.
1958.
Yes. And they
Well before Barney and Betty Hill.
Exactly. But the story didn't come out for a few years because they didn't remember what happened. However, they started having symptoms of what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder, which happens to a lot of people who've had such an experience. They started having some odd behavior. And one of them was the brothers, who were up to that time, up to the summer of 1958, they were both bachelors. They lived together. They each had their own cars. They dated a lot. They were, one was an engineer for what sounds to me, isn't named, but it sounds to me like something like IBM at the time.
Oh.
And the younger brother was a technical writer. So these are intelligent people having a great time dating all kinds of women. Suddenly, and one of them became engaged. And after the summer of 1958, their behavior changed.
Both of them.
Yes,
Both of
in
them.
different ways. One of the brothers, who had been engaged since January, suddenly broke off his engagement, stopped dating altogether
Whoa.
for years. for years.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the UFO abduction.
We believe so.
Potentially.
And the other thing that happened was the two brothers, after the summer of 1958, suddenly became they would avoid driving in a car together, which they had done countless times before.
Oh, that's
and
fascinating.
Suddenly they would do anything to avoid driving together, especially at night. And then what happened that really sent them looking for help was one night they were driving together. They happened to drive into a bank of fog, and the brother who was driving suddenly just stopped the car in the middle of the road and would not proceed. He looked over at his brother. His brother was curled up in a ball of fear.
Really?
Yes, in the passenger seat. And that sent them to a psychiatrist. They decided we need to figure out what's going on. The psychiatrist had no interest in UFOs, no belief in UFOs whatsoever. But in investigating, trying to help these brothers, he started narrowing it down. It's something in the summer of 1958 happened. It had to do with not both cars, one particular car that they had, and had to do with being in a fog bank. And he eventually did hypnotic regression on them separately.
Oh, really?
And got the same story from different points of view of the two brothers. So, like I said, I don't know if you can even find this book, except if you're lucky in a used bookstore, because it was printed in 1967.
Let's show them again.
And but I found it fascinating. You might be able to find it
library.
online. Yeah.
1967.
Yeah, I think it was in 1967. Malcolm Kent is the author.
And it's called The Terror Above Us.
Yes.
Ooh, nice title.
Fascinating story.
That's interesting you would mention two brothers together in a car when they had the sighting, because that's what happened with my sister and I with our first sighting. And
Oh, tell us, please. This is great. You won't believe.
This was in 1979, and we were driving from Seattle to Sun Valley, Idaho, ski resort. And it was late at night. We were young, so we left probably at 2 in the afternoon, and it's a 10-hour drive. So about 2:30 in the morning, we were just approaching the southern portion of the resort of Sun Valley, Idaho. And all of a sudden, there was out of nowhere, and not a sound, a huge, bright, blinding light just appeared in front of our windshield. It was approximately 40 feet high and maybe 50 feet in front of us.
You're kidding. On a highway?
On the highway.
On a highway.
It was exactly straight in front of us, and it just appeared out of nowhere. And I said to my sister, "What is that?" She goes, "I don't know." And I said, and then out loud, I said, "Well, maybe it's a helicopter light." And then I rolled the window down, and I didn't hear a thing. And what brought this to mind was, Stephanie, when you said the fear and that the one brother was curled up in the front seat of the car, I didn't curl up, but I was so frightened. My heart was pounding in my throat, and I was basically begging my sister for my life, because I knew that what was in front of us was so much more powerful than we ever could be. And if it wanted us, it had us. And my response to my sister was, "What are we going to do, Terry? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do, Terry?" I felt I was begging for my life.
And she was going, "I have no idea. I have no idea." What was she doing?
Well, she was driving.
Okay.
And as soon as we saw the light, then we realized it was unlike anything we'd ever seen before. She started slowing. So we were traveling at approximately 75 miles an hour, and when we saw the light, she started slowing, and the light kept the same height and the same distance as we did. As we slowed, it
Really?
didn't falter in height or distance. It just slowed with us. And we got to the point where Terry stopped the car. And I kept repeating, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" and my sister Terry said, "I don't know, but let's just get out of here."
That's so super.
So she stopped the car, and she turned it around, and we ran from it. We drove away from it, approximately 3 or 4 miles. Now, it was in that time frame that I don't clearly remember how long it was bright and shining behind us. However, I do remember coming to a stop about 3 or 4 miles down the road, and we turned back into the direction we were traveling. I rolled the window down, and I looked and tried to see if I could see anything, but nothing. It was pitch black.